Morning! Welcome back to another beautiful sunny day here in eastern North Carolina. It's going to be a bit hot today, high in the upper 80s, but considering the past few weeks where it was 100 and something, yeah, no, this is good. This is nice. It is a bit bright though. Oh, I'm squinting a bit. Behind me I have mammoth sunflowers, and mammoth they are. They're supposed to grow up to approximately 12 feet tall. These are, I would say maybe the tallest one is about 12 foot tall or close to it. Maybe 8, 9, I don't know. I'm not going to get measuring tape out. They look awesome. It's the first year I've successfully grown mammoth sunflowers. I've tried before in the past, but they've never gotten that tall. May have had something to do with the heat or the sun or the lack thereof when I was in New York. Either way, here we are. These look awesome. But that's not the topic of today's video. If you've read the title or if you saw the title, Why Vets Should Garden. I had a friend recently text me and he said, why don't you bring up the fact that you're a veteran and somehow incorporate that into your videos? I thought about it and I thought, that's kind of awkward, it's kind of weird, and I really don't want to do that. And you know what? I served during peacetime. It wasn't that big of a deal. I never saw combat. It just, I don't know. It felt odd. But then I got to thinking that recently I saw on Gardener's World. That's a British, if you're not familiar with Gardener's World, it's a British gardening magazine style television program. They brought up the fact that a lot of veterans that are coming back from or have come back from Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. were taking up gardening to help them deal with various issues, physical or mental. So, and today I think I'm going to touch on why maybe veterans should look into taking up gardening. So why should veterans try gardening? Well, you can turn around and grow your own vegetables. There's a huge plus there, which means you don't have to go to the store and buy vegetables that were grown in Argentina, Chile, Brazil, China. You can grow your own vegetables, and homegrown vegetables do taste very good. If you catch me stumbling over my words, it's because none of this is scripted. I have some bullet points I'm going to try to touch on, but none of this is scripted, so I tend to trip over my tongue a lot. But with the vegetables, and again, I have a lot of property here. I'm on an 1.5 acres in eastern North Carolina. The vegetable garden itself is 40 feet wide by 80 feet long. And I'm not using all of the potential space that I could be using right now. Hopefully I will down the road. But for now I have 8 beds, plus there's one completed bed behind the camera and another bed that I still haven't finished filling, and I'll get to that at another point. If you haven't watched any of my previous videos, please go back and watch my previous videos. You get to see some of the antics and shenanigans that I've been up to building out this garden. I put the 8 in-ground beds in. I've grown 4 beds of potatoes. I harvested them earlier this year. I had several beds with tomatoes in it, mixed in with other fruits and vegetables, sort of as an experiment, but I grew tomatoes. The tomatoes didn't come out so well because I had a lot of insect pressure, and they just pretty much devoured and destroyed my tomatoes. So I'll have to fix that next year. I'll have to come up with a solution to that. And there are solutions. And I think that's one of the other reasons that maybe veterans should garden, is because it gives you a task, it gives you a purpose. There's something to work towards and problem solve. And if I know anything from being in the military and knowing people who have been in the military, is that you learn to solve problems that you didn't have to, I'm again fumbling on my words there. You learn to solve problems, period. Let's go with that, okay? You learn to solve problems. If a problem is presented to yourself, you're forced sometimes through extreme circumstances to fix those problems or find out, how can I resolve this problem? And if I can't resolve it this time, how do I take care of it for next time? Again, gardening. Man, I'm going to have to edit the hell out of this. So again, forgive me for my choppy editing and my tongue tripping over. This doesn't always come naturally to me, this whole YouTube thing. And speaking in general has never been a strong point of mine. You can ask people I know, and I know very few people. Nurturing. you get to nurture things. You get to, now that you've transitioned to that civilian role, to maybe help heal or help, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a psychologist. Psychologists could probably explain it better than me. But you can now nurture things. So if you're gardening and you're growing something, you can nurture those things. And that's, for instance, some veterans have gotten service animals. Well, those service animals help them in multiple ways, but one of the ways that I imagine that does help those animals is you nurture those animals. You take care of those animals, because if you take care of the animal's obviously going to take care of you. The same can be said for the garden. If you take care of the garden, if you water the garden, if you prevent the bugs from eating your tomatoes, if you tend to the soil, you're nurturing the garden and you're taking care of the garden, and then the garden will take care of you. You'll get better crops, you'll get better harvests, you'll get better flowers, you'll get better shrubs, you'll get better fruits. You can't really fail at gardening. So I've heard a lot of people say, as I was growing up and before I even started gardening, is I don't have a green finger. You don't need a green finger. That's a myth. There's no such thing as a green finger. True, some people have better luck, and maybe some people have a little more skill or talent at gardening, but you don't need a green finger, and you really can't fail at gardening. Here's how you fail at gardening. Don't do anything. That's how you fail at gardening. If you want to garden, then it's just a matter of reading the instructions, taking a little care, nurturing the plants. I planted out a bunch of beans earlier this year, and they kind of failed. They flopped, and I think part of it was the soil. I was watering them, but hey, they didn't grow so well. Now you may go, well, that's a failure. Is it? Because I was allowed to do a do-over. I was capable of doing a do-over. It's not really a failure. It's something that you can learn from. So it's something that you can bounce back from. So again, if I had that crop failure of those beans, I've now turned around, improved the soil with compost, planted new beans, watered it in, they're growing. Now whether they grow successfully or not down the road, we'll have to see. And if they fail again, if they don't grow properly again, if something happens to them, if they get eaten by bugs, learning experience, chalk it up, bounce back, come at it again a different way. It's again, there's no, if you parachute from a plane and you didn't pack your chute right, that's not necessarily something you can bounce back from. That's not necessarily a failure that you can recover from. Whereas gardening, there's, again, you plant a plant, you go to the garden center, you can buy yourself a flower, you stick it in the ground, you forget to water it, it dies. That was your fault. But if you catch it before it's fully dead, maybe before those roots are fully dry, okay, let's say you didn't water for 2 weeks, you can come back, you can drench it, you can give it a little fertilizer, maybe a little more compost, and I almost guarantee you the plant will bounce back. I recently this year I went to Lowe's. I purchased two plants on the clearance rack. They were mostly dead, but either way, I purchased them, brought them home, watered them, soaked them in pot of water for about 24 hours, took them out, put them into the ground with good soil. They're growing. So again, there's a lot of flexibility with gardening, and you really can't fail, honestly. I mean, I know you can have a crop failure, but that doesn't mean you failed as a gardener. There were maybe circumstances that were out of your control, but again, because you're not skydiving, with a bare parachute, you can come back from that crop failure. You can learn from that crop failure, put it into that knowledge base of what you had before, and then go from there. There's another reason, maybe veterans should garden, because if you make a mistake, if you have a crop failure, if a plant doesn't necessarily grow, you can learn from those experiences and bounce back with little to no harm. Now, I've mentioned or I've stood around my sunflowers, and I talked about vegetables. You can grow flowers. Now, some of you tough guys out there may think that growing flowers is something that sissies do or pansies do. Funny, that's an actual flower. Growing flowers, especially I'm standing in front of probably one of my favorite flowers this year. This is a dahlia called Clearview Daniel. And dahlia is grown from tubers. I've done a bunch of videos on dahlias. There are a ton of videos out there on YouTube on dahlias, so I'm not going to get into it right now. But you feel a sense of accomplishment when a plant that you grew from nothing, from something that looked like a rotten potato, into a plant that now stands 4 foot tall, is putting on all these flowers. It gives you a sense of accomplishment, something that you can feel good about. Now, if you're looking maybe, let's say, to make a buck, gardening can take you down that path, because if you learn to garden, if you learn the basics, if you learn how to nurture and take care of these things, you could turn around and make a cut flower garden. You can make a garden that you grow just, let's say, potatoes in, or a particular crop, and then you could sell that, whether you sell the flowers, you sell the crop. So gardening can lead you into endeavors down the road that can then make you money, which again, sense of accomplishment. You're learning something that you can gain from. I actually don't sell my dahlias, I just grow them because I think they look really nice, and I like the different types of dahlias. I like the sunflowers. I like a lot of different plants, and hopefully in the future I will have a large flower garden, and in that flower garden I will have a plethora of all sorts of different types and shapes and sizes of flowers. But that's just me. You can do whatever you want, and again, I think that's another awesome aspect of gardening, and maybe why veterans should garden, is because you can do whatever you want. You can grow just flowers, you can grow just vegetables, you can grow it for satisfaction or beautification of your property, you can grow it for profit. There's a lot of flexibility. You can go to school for all this. You can go and learn on YouTube, or read a book, or look at 1,000,001 websites on gardening, and again, the different aspects. So gardening is very flexible, and it gives you a lot of different opportunities as to which direction you want to go to. Gardening can also be very relaxing and stress relieving. You can do repetitive tasks, which I've heard somebody recently described as, instead of being thought of as tedious, can be meditative. So deadheading, for example, which you just saw me doing, if I have a lot of plants that need deadheaded, a lot of flowers, you can just go through, clip, move, clip, move, clip, move. If you have tomatoes, a lot of tomatoes that need to be harvested, again, you just go through. It's a repetitive motion. It's a repetitive thing. But that's all you're doing. You're just doing that one repetitive task, and because you're just doing that one repetitive task, it can be stress-free in a sense, because you're not worrying about anything else. You're just relaxing and focusing on one task. Deadheading, picking tomatoes, whatever it may be that you're doing repetitively. Gardening can be pretty stress-free, and that's a good thing. Now, if you've served in the military, you know that there can be a lot of hard work involved. And you usually have somebody of higher rank yelling at you to do that hard work. Maybe not yelling, maybe strongly suggesting. Either way, you're having somebody to tell you to do that work. Well, here in the garden, if you decide to garden, no one tells you when to do that work, except for the plants. Tomatoes will let you know when they're ripe and ready. You'll learn when the tomatoes are ripe and ready. You'll learn when the potatoes need to be harvested. You'll know when the plants need water. They usually start to wilt and brown. So your pace is different and the way the work that you do, again, is different. There can be a lot of hard work in the garden. I have a lot of wood chips behind me that need to get spread out throughout the garden. I'm sitting on bags of mulch and compost that need to get purposed someplace here in the garden. It's a lot of heavy lifting for me, and it's a lot of hard work. And your garden doesn't need to be the size of mine will eventually hopefully be, which is 1.5 acres. Your garden can be something the size of an average suburban front lawn, let's say 40 by 60. You could tear that up and plant it out any which way you want. You can make a decorative garden, a flower garden. You could make a, what's the word I'm looking for? An edible garden. There's actually something called an edible garden. It's basically where you intermix your fruits and vegetables in with your regular shrubbery and flowers. It's a whole nother thing. I'm not going to get into it today, but you can do a lot of things in a 40 by 60 garden. Maybe you live in a city and all you have is a little cement pad. Well, you can get yourself a raised bed to build on top of that cement pad. You can put plants inside pots and grow from there. There's a gardener from the Netherlands called Klaus Dalby, and he has, I believe, a 1 acre front yard, which he ripped out all the grass, him and his partner, and they made it into this large garden. And it has, I think he said something like 15 different rooms, so every space is divided by shrubbery. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is I found out recently that a lot of his gardening is done in pots inside these spaces. So instead of putting the flowers or maybe the shrubs into the ground, like you would normally do, he puts them in pots. And one of the reasons is because he likes to move those pots around. Maybe he doesn't want to see so much red in one corner, so he'll pull out the pots with the red flowers or plants. He'll move them someplace else. He'll put maybe some white flowers or plants or something over in the other corner. It allows him a lot of flexibility. So if that guy can do it, why can't anybody else? So, and that's, again, there's nothing stopping you from trying to learn to garden. There's a lot of benefits from learning to garden. If you're sitting on the couch after you've gotten back from after being in the military for so long and you're eating a lot of Doritos, go outside, get some sunshine, get some exercise, move around some bags of compost or mulch or something, get the blood pumping, and when you stand back at the end of the day, hopefully, once you've done whatever you're doing, whether it's building raised beds, planting pumpkins, planting tomatoes, planting flowers, shrubs, trees, whatever, you'll feel a sense of accomplishment. And I don't care who you are, that feels good. It always feels good to feel that you've accomplished something. So again, gardening can give you a task and purpose, exercise, you can benefit from growing the flowers, you harvest your own vegetables, you can do a lot of things. So gardening gives you a lot of opportunities. And as you're doing those tasks and as you're doing those purposes, those things, sometimes they, like I said, they can be repetitive, but that can also be meditative. So you can feel less stressed as you're doing those tasks. I think I've prattled on enough today. That's going to be about it for me. If you like this video or if you'd like to see more of my antics in the garden, please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon to be notified when I do post up a new video. If you don't follow me on Instagram, give it a follow on Instagram. Also, I've been posting up a little more on Twitter. The only posts you'd see on Twitter, if you're on Twitter, I know it's a toxic hell zone nowadays, but if you are on Twitter, I've been posting some more personal thoughts, as it were, or gardening thoughts, or personal thoughts on gardening, things like that. So previously it was just relinking to my Instagram or my YouTube. Now I'm trying to utilize it a bit more and posting some various thoughts and feelings about gardening onto Twitter. So if you like that, or if you haven't seen it, please go check it out. I'll leave the link someplace around here. Also, there's links below to all of this. If I fail to put a link, please leave a comment. If there's something in this video you didn't like or disagree with or agree with, please leave a comment. I'm always open to suggestions. And I think that's going to be about do it for today. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.